Welcome to a couple extra special episodes of Fortune and Strife. We're going to be taking a look at Adventures in Rokugan, the 5th edition D&D rule set for playing in, Rokugan. Doing a little L5R in a new setting. We're going to be joined by Shannon, who's going to be taking the reins as the GM. And this is going to be a fun bit for me as I can kind of relax and get into character playing mode for once. We're also going to be joined by Eric, who is our been guesting with us for a little bit, and we're gonna go ahead and kind of move things into a new realm of how to play L5R.
All right. And hi, I'm Shannon Calvar. I will admit that I do not play L5R 5th edition, although I've played every other edition of L5R, including the Imperial edition, back when the Imperial edition was a card game. I have also been playing D&D for a long time. I was given my first box set, the red box set, by my mother, who made the horrible mistake of attempting to game master two 11-year-old boys for their first game. And that turned out about as well as you might imagine. And ever since then, actually, I've been the designated game master. And when I'm not writing and running my own games, I basically run Dungeons and Dragons, or occasionally Traveler, sometimes Star Frontiers. Anyways, and so I'm really looking forward to this opportunity to both explore some of what's happened with Adventures in Rokugan, but also to see Rokugan again and really explore kind of a story in the Rokugan-y setting using some of the tools that we have in the new Dungeons and Dragons. So I hope that sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to admit, I've been a bit skeptical. I'm not the biggest Dungeons and Dragons fan. You know, my favorite edition of D&D is 4th edition, which is generally everyone's least favorite. So we'll see how this goes. I'm definitely gonna give it an honest try, though. So yeah, looking forward to this.
All right. So I'm just kind of curious. Sort of a little quick, I guess I would say, show of hands, but we're speaking. Who here has played any versions of Dungeons and Dragons? I mean, starting from the box sets all the way to 5th edition.
I think almost everyone here.
Yeah, I started with 3.5.
Okay.
And then have gone up through Pathfinder 4th edition and then 5th edition.
Okay.
I think I started with AD&D 2nd edition back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Same. Cut my teeth on Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Finally started to understand how THAC0 works just as 3rd came out. And jump ship.
And for my part, I've played since Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, pretty much skipped 4th edition, and played a couple games now in 5th edition, and like that. All right, especially because it's got all the tools online to help me understand, help me with character sheets and stuff. So, yay for D&D Beyond.
I gotta admit, D&D Beyond and their online tools are really fantastic in this edition.
Yeah, they've made some good progress.
Yeah, I've played a little bit of 5th edition for a friend that was streaming it. They needed an extra player, and I'm always there to help a friend in need, and I was really impressed. I think they're doing some of the best digital game space stuff. I think Lancer's the only other game that does it as well or better. Yeah.
Right. And so my hope for this evening was that we could get to know each other a little bit, which will help, and we could also do some session 0, what we now call session 0 kinds of stuff, right? I would like to talk with you a little bit about what you'd like in a game, tell you a little bit about what I was thinking. I'd like to explore just a little bit together on what we think makes a game and Legend of the Five Rings. What makes this Adventures in Rokugan, as opposed to just like we're going to wander around as elves in the Forgotten Realms. Because, well, it's important, right? Because one of the things that I'd like to make sure that I get out of this conversation is, what is it that you want to see or you want to do in the next, I think we're going to have 2, maybe 6 hours together, maybe 5, maybe 6, that would really make this a positive experience for you and would make it be a adventure in Rokugan. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Oh yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So
I hope we work out characters too, because that's the worst part for me. I hate that.
I'm not going to say anything.
You can say it. I hate making characters.
Yes, you do. But no, absolutely. We're going to go over the characters, and I'm at the end of the session. We can talk a little bit about whether you'd like to, if you have the books, and how you'd like to go about the last kind of mechanical pieces of that. Because from my point of view, the mechanics of the character are just how we express the story of the character we're trying to tell, right? And with D&D, you can sometimes get kind of lost in that, or with any game system. But I really want to kind of establish that as sort of the first rule that I use it as kind of the game, right? Sort of my first rule, my rule 0, is that if I want all of the players to have fun, okay, that sounds sort of silly just to say it out loud, but I'm going to say it because I'm like that. I want everybody to have fun, and all of the players includes me, right? This is a much more important conversation when I'm trying to run games for my 14-year-old. And, I have 3 or 4 14 to 16-year-olds kind of battering around at each other. I'm like, hey guys, this is supposed to be fun for all of us, including me. But does that make sense as a first rule? Like the most important rule?
Yeah, if you're not having fun,
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, we're all having fun. That's rule 0. Rule number 1 is we're going to do a story together, right? But also, because I think people are going to be listening for this, I also want to have an opportunity to kind of showcase some of the rules that are in Adventures in Rokugan that make it different than standard Dungeons and Dragons. Both because I think that would be interesting, and also because I think that would be very interesting for people who are thinking about this game and how it fits into the kind of the constellation of games that we think of as L5R, and kind of show them where this one fits. So those are kind of my goals, right? That's what I would like to see. What would you like to see? What would be good?
I guess I can start off and say that for me, one of the quintessential things about Rokugan are the duels. I always love seeing how duels are resolved. Just any kind of dueling scene, I'm always at the edge of my seat. And so this is definitely one that I want to see how it's pulled off in this particular game system.
Okay. Would you like to be a participant or would you like to watch?
Honestly, either. I like if I get to be in the duel, that's great. But if I get to just witness it, I'm also fine with that. I'd also be fine with being the instigator and then having someone else duel on my behalf.
Fair enough.
I think for me, a big part of L5R is in the intrigue and the dynamics between the clans and the different agendas that take place. And I know that in a short shot, that's going to be kind of, we can't delve too deeply into that, but we can definitely maybe have like the end result of that and the confrontation that results from the different agendas and the machinations of the clans vying for control and power against each other.
Okay. Now that does raise a point, and I'd like to throw this out there for the party to think about, which is, to what degree are you seeing inter-party conflict as necessary for an L5R? Because I'll admit that I've listened to a lot of L5R broadcasts over the years, and different people have very different opinions about that. So,
of all tabletop role-playing games, L5R is one that feels the more likely to have inter-party conflict and it be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because with like standard D&D games, the most times that you see any kind of party conflict is the rogue has stolen from the party kind of deal. And so, but with L5R, everyone's got their own different agendas, and their families have different agendas. So it kind of lends itself more towards being a high conflict, but that's okay for me. If there is no conflict, I'm also perfectly fine with that. But I'm happy to have a little bit of push and shove when it comes to within the party.
I like it
Okay.
for
Yeah, I second that, absolutely.
I was just going to say, I like the inter-party conflict, and it's something I do want to actually push a little bit more of in our regular Fortune and Strife when we get back to where we're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
That said, in a one-shot, I think it could bog us down, so I'm a little concerned of it for a one-shot.
Yeah, for a one-shot, I could see, definitely some disagreements being aired and shouted about, but generally would want to keep those concise and short and moving forward as quickly as we could.
As the person running this and sort of calling the shots, do you kind of have an idea of what sort of story you want to tell, or what about Rokugan you want to explore?
Oh, absolutely. But we haven't heard everybody's Rokugan points. I kind of went down a quick rabbit hole with the inter-party conflict because it's really important. And part of the reason I wanted to bring it up is I agree that L5R is one of those places where you can have a lot of inter-party conflict. But one of the rules that I have had to adopt over the years for my own games is that I really do hope that the players will work with me to keep the party together. Especially in these short games, but even in longer games, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. So we've got dueling, we've got intrigue, kind of that differing agenda. What else are we thinking about? What makes it Rokugan?
Well, one thing for me is definitely sort of like the family and clan dynamics and politics. Sort of going back to what Tyler is talking about of how, sometimes conflict can feel a little better this and some things, because in most games it's usually rogue shit. But this is the sort of game where it's like you could be best friends and they're like, oh, you didn't hear? Your clans are at war with each other now. You need to go kill each other. And like that sort of conflict between what your duty and what your desire are is big fun fundamental aspect of the game, and that's one of the things that I enjoy about it.
I think for me, on for two things, to make it Rokugan, a lot depends on, I'm going to say courtesy, but more like some standards of behavior. You shouldn't be murder hoboing it around. You should care about the consequences of your actions and wanting to be, wanting to present that image, whether you call that honor or abiding by the code of a Kodo, or however you want to present it. That's that kind of behavior, being conscious of where you are in a communal society, is what makes it more Rokugan for me, rather than many other kinds of Dungeons and Dragons or adventuring. You care, it matters. You don't go looting the corpses, even, at least not without thinking about it. You don't, this behavior has consequences.
Well, no, you definitely loot the corpse. You take the sword of your fallen opponent, and then you journey to their home, and you present it to their family. And there's a ritual to it. There's you're on the inside. You're in. Yeah, you're not an outsider.
Yeah, it's a communal society, and that matters. So that's one thing. In terms of what I want to see in the game, which is slightly different, is that my hope for this is that we get to see some of not all of them, but some of the pieces click together, so they can, so that people who are listening to us and me could see how, like, some of these classes and techniques and stuff click to make cool cool effects and in battle, or cool effects in Magic or whatever, so you can do cool stuff, because it's fun to do cool stuff. So that's it. So I'd like to see some of that.
Yeah, I mean, okay. There is a certain level at which this is a role-playing game, and we are playing cool, good-looking people doing cool, good-looking things. We do not have to take it as far as they take it in Amber, the diceless role-playing system.
Right, but in the end,
I mean, there's some
in the end, we're doing this for Adventures in Rokugan, so I want to show off some of Adventures in Rokugan. I could roleplay a wet paper
some
bag
adventures.
And be completely happy to roleplay for hours that way, but that wouldn't necessarily show people about this particular game system.
Fair enough. Right. And I guess you asked a really good question, which is, what do I think is a Rokugan adventure? So for me, one of the things that makes Rokugan very different is that each person has a place. Each place has a place. And they are all part of a system. And that system can be quite mythic. Several of my adventures, like we did an entire adventure that was based off a great idea that a friend of mine had, which was the Dark Thunders. And all throughout the entirety of the clan war, the Dark Thunders were rising, and they were going to kill the Thunders before the moment, and the PCs were trying to defeat the Dark Thunders before that moment could occur. Yeah, so I see kind of I can do that very mythically, or we can do it very, very grounded, more like a Kurosawa film. But that sense of each of you has a place, and that place has responsibilities. And if you live up to those responsibilities, then you yourself become better and stronger, and your community becomes stronger. And that's why I created the community rules that I did and the influence games that I did. To try to express some of those ideas. So that does that sound? I mean, it sounds like we're all kind of in the same place. Yep.
Works for me.
Yeah, I think we're in sync on this one.
Okay. Great. And I even see duels fitting into that, right? Because duels are when you come to those moments where there is inevitably conflict within the system. Within your places have simply put you where you must conflict. And a duel is a way of resolving that existential conflict, whether that be two friends who find themselves on opposite sides of the battlefield, or two ritualists in this system fighting against one another, even though they are both trying to preserve the holiness of a place. So great. And I really do think that this gives me some ideas. For this story that I was imagining we could do together, I was hoping to do something set in a provincial court, something that was a little bit smaller in scale than my usual, you must defeat the Dark Thunders and preserve Rokugan's fate. But I was thinking we would do something around the transition into winter, perhaps, as a story. So you have a time when people are coming together. You have a time when the world is becoming more dangerous, right? Where you only have what you have, what you've been able to put together to make it through the cold, dark months ahead. And that was kind of going to be my starting point in that kind of a story. And I was hoping as we talked, we'd be able to come up with some additional threads. But I did want to ask another question. As we think about games, right, we can do all kinds of sorts of things, right? I've just mentioned that I have a tendency to go mythic. But too much reading Greek myths when I was a kid, and it did bad things to my brain. But we could do horror, right? You could do kind of slice of life. My kids love to do crafting. I don't know why, but they play Minecraft and Fallout upstairs right now, and they just love to craft stuff in game. Okay. So if you were to pick a genre, or maybe 2 or 3 genres, what would be of interest? What would be fun?
That's actually kind of tough. I guess for me, I lean more towards enjoying the intrigue and more like political thriller kind of style. So a regional court does sound good. I guess I can't say mecha. That doesn't really quite fit. So
I could maybe pull something off, but maybe we'll put that one down.
Probably not for this one.
Yeah.
Give me a good Chambara flick or Zatoichi thing, something along those lines, with some fun, deadly, weighty action, punctuated by intrigue, whether that's like street level Yakuza thugs trying to force a family out of their land or whatnot, all the way up to a conflict between Crane and Lion, to go completely generic there. But yeah, something in the fallout between 2 families. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I think I'd like to have something that builds up. I like my big, heroic conclusion. So I'll take, I'm perfectly happy with, a lot of intrigue or something on the path, but maybe it ends up with a nice big conclusion, whether it's a 7 Samurai or a 47 Ronin, or some kind of dramatic fight for the end. And I think for this, especially for Adventures in Rokugan, you're not necessarily looking at the style of L5R that is the complex wringing yourself out trying to make hideous decisions between 2 terrible options. You're going for your hero moment. I'd like a hero moment at the end, no matter what genre we do it in.
Okay, so you're definitely thinking more the heroic.
It doesn't have to
fantasy
be fantasy, like
line.
I said.
And that's great.
Most Chambara flicks do end up with a nice, big hero battle at the end. So it doesn't have. Either that or a terrible seppuku.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'd rather end up with the heroic battle rather than terrible seppuku at the end, if that's all right. Thank you.
Why not both? One is someone commits seppuku while the other person duels to the death. Yeah, no, it's just all sorts of nasty stuff going on in the courtyard today.
You gotta clean up the blood. All right, Eric?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jen a bit. I do. My brain was just going on track. I'm like, and how do we combine all of these to make the perfect Venn diagram? Like, let's see, it's Winter Court. We're zombie uprising.
We're just getting a retelling of Mirror Mirror up in here.
There we go.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be zombies.
Well, did you have?
It could be, the enemy army or the bandit Ronin or whatever.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. But did you have? I'm gonna say we've got kind of political thriller with the Chambara and some heroic. Kind of a rising heroic to a heroic conclusion. Anything you'd like to add?
No, that sounds fun to me.
Okay. Well, for me, that's actually fairly fairly straightforward. So my thought, just to kind of give you some framing before we move into the next piece, like I said, I really want to start this at kind of the beginning of winter. So, and as I was kind of playing around with ideas over the last couple of weeks, I thought it would be really interesting, not so much to do a winter court precisely, but to do the winter gathering of the family. So these people, wherever they come from, whoever they were, are all related to one another. They're cousins, second cousins, brothers, sisters. It's for us to figure out as we go forward. Being called back to the old family home, where they may have gone off and done all sorts of things in their lives. They've assumed other roles, they've done other things, but now they're coming back to where their old roles still exist, where they still have to negotiate around these roles within their family. And I was imagining their family, the family home, right? And here we're talking about a multi-generational family, don't think of the small Western nuclear family with maybe a handful of little outliers. Here we're talking about families where grandma, grandpa, all the cousins, all the aunts and uncles, they all kind of live in the same, or have lived and have the ability to live in the same place. And you're coming back now for a reason, and we'll figure out, I have a couple of those in mind, but I really wanted to think about what your character backgrounds were and who your characters were as they had moved out. And so with that kind of framing, and with our knowledge of L5R, I did want to kind of start to probe a little bit about what kind of characters we think might be interesting to play. And we're going to do this in a couple of pieces, right? First, we're going to take what we've talked about things we might like to see with our characters, and we're going to kind of probe a little bit and see if any ideas about that character have emerged. I'm also willing to go one of two ways with character creation, kind of the generation of the person. One way is I can ask you some questions about your character. I've been doing 10 and 20 question based character creation for decades. So I don't necessarily use the standard L5R approved set, but we can ask some questions. Or you could just I imagine you have ideas for L5R characters. And we can take some of those ideas and begin to weave them together into this background for the story. Mm-hmm. Then we'll do the mechanical side.
I was going to say...
go ahead. So whichever as a group you think...
Because we have a kind of a goal of showing off a little bit of the Adventures in Rokugan game system, or exploring it in different aspects, keeping our audience in mind, I think... us talking together rather than doing individual questions means that we can make sure we cover all more of the bases than we might otherwise be able to cover. Does that make sense? Like we can make sure that we've got a Bushi and a if someone wants to play that and someone else play a courtier and that sort of thing. Keeping in mind those Adventures in Rokugan classes, so that we all kind of cover stuff.
Right. So I was talking about putting our character together and then talking about the mechanics of our characters both together, not separately necessarily. But okay. Let's just start. I'm going to tell you that this place is located on the edge of, I was actually looking at the map and of course now can't remember. Because, I blinked between now and the last time I looked at the book, and therefore my brain is mush. Let's see here. This is set on the border between Crane and Phoenix Lands. It is not a rich place. It is centered around a small valley with what would officially be called sprawling estates, if there were enough human beings in this region to do anything with them other than watch them turn into thickets. But it has been decades since the family had that many people. Characters can come from any kind of you can imagine your character as being from a background being either crane or phoenix or scorpion or lion. We'd have to go a little bit further afield to get you to unicorn. But you would have grown up around here. You could have been educated either by Phoenix or by Crane, or you could have been fostered out to extended family out amongst Lion and Dragon. Scorpion is further afield, but not impossible. So if you were to imagine someone who had grown up and then left, right? Because that's sort of the story: is you grew up, you left, you had another life, and now the family patriarch has called you back for whatever reason. And it's a character who would fit into this story. What would you like to play? What would you like to do? Who would you like to be?
Anyone got any ideas to go first?
Crickets?
Or did you guys come in with anything?
I got a couple things brewing in the back of my head.
Sure.
Thinking a courtier who's trying to keep the family together.
Mm-hmm.
And so has gone off to learn the ways of the courts and of the greater political system, has probably wound up in an overlord's court as a minor functionary, but at least has tried to get his foot in somehow, despite coming from a backwater like this, kind of a aging Grey Gardens estate style thing. And then the other one would be a duelist that is kind of on the opposite end, is tired of family expectation and has kind of gone on a Musha Shugyo for some time, a warrior's pilgrimage, and kind of left in many ways, forsaken the family and even his family name as he went off on this this kind of chaotic quest, or quixotic, I should say. I didn't get the word right there. To he's saying he's doing it to better himself and follow Bushido, but in many ways it's just a way for him to shirk his family responsibilities and run away from expectation.
Okay.
I've got two in mind right now myself. One is sort of someone that's getting detached from the family as well, the same way that Robert was saying. But they're actually a shrine keeper, one of the Kaitos, and just getting that call back and being like, oh, I guess I do have to worry about worldly things now, and kind of coming back. The other one I was thinking of was actually a adopted Kakita duelist. The Crane saw, like, they found this kid, saw they had a large amount of potential and talent for dueling, and arranged a marriage to grab that person and pull them over to the Crane, and now they have less ties to their family than before. And so having this sudden callback is like, well, who are these people? Why should I ever care about them? They never cared about me, kind of deal.
Okay.
I was thinking, seeing how this might be sort of hotbed of conflict, playing someone from a third party who's trying to exacerbate tensions, so their rivals go to war or have some sort of problems that they can exploit.
Okay. So kind of an interloper. Okay. Would a character like that go ahead?
And hypothetically, seeing if it might be a more close setting, more careful family, I could be someone from a different clan who's like married in, and sort of exploiting that connection to get in
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say, or are you pretending to be someone you're not?
That is always another option.
All right. Okay. So kind of an interloper, either from an intrigue standpoint or from a
be a kitsune. Well,
or potentially,
be
a little
there's
sneakier.
lots of non-humans. You could be a non-human who's taking the role of somebody in the family who maybe died without somewhere off the radar, and now they're taking their place. That's an idea.
Or it could just be that you're a quote unquote friend of the family who's now forcing yourself into these into these things going on. And of course the family feels honor bound to let you do what you need to do, but everyone's kind of panicking.
For myself, I had two thoughts. One is just playing a very straightforward, trying to be a good child of the family, but maybe not the sharpest pencil in the box. Just trying to keep their head low, middle child kind of person. Either as a ritualist or as a bushi. Alternatively, I could see playing, depending on what other people play and how many people are willing to play kind of straight, I could see playing a black sheep, someone who is loyal to the family, but maybe the family is not so happy with their conduct for various reasons, and maybe a little shinobi in there. Shinobi action in there for that. So those could be good. Also, like I said, also might be willing to play someone who is like a non-human who is infiltrating the family, if not on the destructive side, on the I am a blessing to this family.
Might I recommend my favorite of the new non-humans, the weird legendary type thing, the spirit of the family. I think the weird legendary thing is one of the coolest new ones they added into to Air. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
It is, and I think that's if one of you wanted to play the spirit of the family, come in the form of a long lost cousin. I would absolutely support that. So right now we have basically 8 or 9 ideas on the table. We have a courtier who has been a minor functionary, or a duelist who is just coming back from his warrior's journey. We have a shrine keeper who really, it sounds like the shrine keeper didn't exactly run away, but pretty much ran away. Has been keeping a shrine and is now called back. Perhaps having to abandon duties that he has left behind. Or a duelist called back from his adopted family, who he feels much closer to. We have an interloper, either married in or potentially the spirit of the family come to support. We have a dutiful middle child who has been off serving in an attempt to probably acquire both fame and glory, but also, frankly, just straight up koku, because your family lands are starting to fail. And the ability to support your people is kind of important. or a black sheep, someone who probably no longer looked on favorably by anyone in the family, really. Does anybody have any of the ones you have described? I mean, so imagine this, right? Your characters are coming together in your home. There's the snow everywhere. Snow starting to, not like gigantic piles of it, but just a little bit of snow. The grounds are ratty. You can see where the old man, your grandfather, who used to rule the place with an iron fist, can no longer keep up with it, and servants have fled. So even though you would certainly never say anything, or perhaps you would, as you're looking at that, which of the characters you've described would you like to play in that kind of a situation?
I think with the characters that most people have talked about so far, I think I would have the most fun playing the courtier who is desperately trying to hold the family together.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards the spoiled rich kid adopted duelist.
Okay. I love it. Okay. Eric?
I keep thinking and working on the ideas here. I do like the idea of an interloper, but I don't know if I want to do something as antagonistic. And I do like the idea of the non-human yokai. So maybe a slight change on that, where
sure,
someone was a family member who was returning and died in the wilderness, and the spirit found them. And their dying wish was to go and help the family in their troubling times. So I'm showing up as them to help as much as I can with what understanding I have of human civilization.
Oh, that's awesome.
Why are there dead squirrels outside everyone's door? I'm like, isn't that nice? I gave you breakfast. I'm helping.
Are you going down the ritualist path? That might make the most sense.
I'm either going to go ritualist or maybe pilgrim.
I just want to make sure, because I think if one of us somebody played a ritualist for this game. That's all. Being that's the case, then I will play a straight up Ushiing. I'm just making the koku. Time to make the donuts.
Okay.
Someone's got to take the hits for the family.
Yep. All right. No, this is sounding like we're moving into the right kind of. This is a group that could work really well together, right? And what I so. Does anybody have any questions before we move on from here, or any additional thoughts? Because we're going to flesh out your relationships with each other here in a few minutes.
I think that's. I'm good on my end.
Okay. All right. Excuse me. Now we're going to get into a little bit of mechanics. Does everybody have a Adventures in Rokugan book? Or a PDF?
Yes.
So we're going to do this in a little bit of a back arseward way, assuming I can ever find what I'm looking for. So if you've ever created a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition character, there's a couple of pieces, right? There's where you choose your species. There's where you choose you select some attributes, you pick some classes, you pick a background. We're going to flip some of this script because we've already started with some of the information about our backgrounds. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of our characters, the motivations and bonds and the things that drive our characters. And then we're going to get really into some of the more mechanical pieces. Does that sound like a good way to approach it, given the conversation we've had so far?
I
good as any,
uploaded a fillable
All right.
character sheet you can download and fill in. Hopefully it works. I have not tested it, but it's from their Edge website, so
It works. Oh, thank God it works.
It's working for me so far.
Given I was not looking forward to putting together custom character sheets for everyone, I'm going to say thank you. All right. So we're actually going to start with backgrounds. And we're going to start with Eric, because you gave us kind of the best, the clearest grip here. And we're going to look at the other realm societies' backgrounds. So a background sets skill proficiencies, gives you some tools, some languages, equipment, and gives you a suggested feat. And one of the big changes here is that feats are a lot more integrated into the characters. In D&D 5th edition, particularly as they originally wrote it, they really seem to consider feats kind of optional. They're even listed as an optional rule. Here,
they're not even standard. Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually listed as optional. Not that anyone I know has ever actually treated feats as optional. So,
well, I mean, when 5th edition first came out, I kind of felt they could be optional. I did not like the feat selection at all in the original, just the core book.
There were some really bad ones there. There were
some
really
just
bad ones.
Lackluster, just not interesting choices. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Later on, they came to a different decision. So, but let's talk a little bit about this spirit. Where's the spirit from? We have a couple of choices. I'm going to discount the realm of slaughter as a possibility. That seems a little unlikely.
Yeah, we can rule that out.
Yeah, and the realm of the hungry dead. No, it's not so much. But we might imagine the Court of the Animal's Path. So, that's the Sixadono. There we go. Words, they come out. You have the Court of Mischief, or the Realm of Waiting. So, the vast place where you're judged by the fortunes of the dead. So, were you thinking your character was kind of a dead spirit? Was more of a trickster kind of a character, or was really just a spirit, an animal spirit who was there and was just, this person was trying to get back to their burrow.
I think more of an animal spirit, but their domain probably has like a major road that goes by it, so they have a lot of familiarity with humans.
Okay. So your background is going to be the Court of the Animal's Path. So that one was pretty straightforward. And I could read out some of the skills, but I don't really think that's a terribly useful if you have the book in front of you.
Yeah, I got the book in front of me. You don't need to go full rainbow for me.
Thank you. But there are some decisions you'll need to make there. You don't have to make them right now because some of your skills will also express kind of how you think about your character. All right. So we had started off with our easy one, making sure that we knew that our spirit was not actually, all that. It's spiritual, but not that scary.
Not malicious, at least.
Not malicious. There we go. Not malicious. It's not scary. It's about wrong. So now we're going to take a look at our humans. Like I said, we're right here at the border between Crane Lands and Phoenix Lands. So your character could conceivably have a Crane Clan background or a Phoenix Clan background easily, right? That would be kind of your character either grew up in a certain way or in the case of our duelist, adopted by the Crane. Regardless of how he might have grown up, his background really is as a Crane duelist, right? You could imagine that. Or he could still cling to the trappings of his former life, although really it doesn't sound like he does.
Yeah, not so much.
Not so much. So why don't we just grab the Kakita? It sounds like you want to be from the Kakita family.
I think Kakita is going to be the way to go. The other one I was thinking of was potentially going Daidoji, still leaning towards the duelist, but having that arranged marriage, just being like, no, we're pulling you over here.
Okay. I mean, any preference there?
Yeah, Kakita.
Kakita, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the Kakita family is actually a background. I would be careful about. We'll talk about multi-classing here in a minute. But yeah, Kakita family background. Obviously, a duelist for class, and we'll play with some of that here in a minute. All right. What about our courtier? You could imagine. What do you imagine here? Do you see them being more Crane, more leaning into the Phoenix side?
Well,
have they left and adopted?
Jeannie, what do you think? Do we want to be from the Crane or the Phoenix? Where do you think our family's allegiances are expected to be towards at this point for our border family?
Well, I think with a Kakita already there,
that's what I'm thinking. Phoenix also with that, yeah.
Yeah, with a Kakita already in.
Oh, you were thinking going
in
Crane.
The family.
Okay.
I think that it depends on how far out you see. It's like if
So you think maybe like a minor vassal family, and this is the Tyler comes from a more well-to-do family, and he's kind of like been assigned to this lesser Crane family?
Well, I was thinking that.
Well, I think it was more along the lines of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking. So it depends on how exotic you want to make show's situation. So if you went non-exotic, which I think is fine personally, because I think that I find L5R is more entertaining with generally slightly more non-fancy backgrounds, and then you just like the situation itself and stuff like brings out all the weirdness. But if you went with slightly less exotic situation, then you have Show being a person from our family who would normally never get sponsored into the academy, but someone in a higher, wealthy family thought he was just like so adorable and with so much potential over some situation that he did when he was 5 or something, that they offered to sponsor him into the Kakita Academy and take care of all of his.
Well, let me take a step back there. I believe Show is not originally from our family. He is not blood related to us. He is married into our family.
No, all the way around.
Oh, all the way around. Okay.
Yeah, I blood related to you, but I was adopted away, and I feel more closer to the other family.
Got it. I got confused on that. I thought you were marrying in. Okay.
No, I got married out, but I'm getting pulled back in.
Okay.
And if this is like some like little like podunk family, and I'm coming in here from like Toshirambo.
Let's go with a Crane. Let's go with Crane backgrounds for us then.
Right. So you did something. Okay. So but this is an idea. You don't have to take this, but this would be an idea if we were a Crane background. Okay. When Show was like 5, he did something incredibly charming and skillful, like, and precocious that drew
something varying, something that impressed a Kakita somewhere. Yeah,
an extremely wealthy Kakita family, and they offered basically because they had enough, more money than God, to benefit our family by, basically adopting him to sponsor him into the Kakita Academy, which we would normally not have the social standing to enter, right?
Sure.
And so he goes to the Kakita Academy. He stays with the wealthy people during their breaks. He's never come home, and he just thinks at this point that he's still part of the family, but he's kind of like so much better than the rest of us because
that's exactly what I was thinking.
He went to Harvard, and all of the rest of us are kind of, pounding posts and podunk equivalent. So, how's that sound? Does that work for you, Tyler?
I think that works. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you are still in our family, but you're the Harvard boy.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can pick from a mechanics standpoint, you could pick one of the Crane families. Or given where you come from, I would be willing to look the other way as the game master and let you pick up, say, rural farmland town as a background.
Do they have that? Oh, okay.
They do. You could pick up. Really, you could do. Depending, you could pick
like commoner backgrounds.
Yeah, there's actually two of them that would fit fairly well. One is the Forest Hamlet, which is, well, it's you grew up in you are still samurai, right? You've been intermarried, but you're all low level samurai. If your background really is the Forest Hamlet or the rural farmland town, either one of those would work for me. You have the name,
right? Yeah, no, I kind of let me take a look at this real quick because that could be pretty neat.
So yeah, if we went with the Forest Hamlet as a background, that would be your family farmstead, your family standing would be very remote, right? If you were a rural farmland town, you're remote, but you would have neighbors. Basically, is what it would amount to.
I think a rural farmland town would be better, or pick a actual Crane family, but it would be,
we'll pick one.
Be a like Suena, a Toda. She's a Toda. So she's a port town Toda. So
okay.
So
I think I'm gonna go with a Doji background though.
Doji.
Okay. You want to go ahead and go with Doji?
Yeah, I think as I'm looking things over and kind of thinking of things, I think being like a Doji vassal family background isn't a bad call. It's like we're Doji, but man, we're poor Doji. We're down low.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Well, and you're in the case of the and in the case of the courtier character, you're very much emphasizing that about yourself, right? Because you're a minor functionary in not the nearest big town, but you probably went one further away.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So we can all be Doji.
So we've got a bunch of...
Except, we've got one non-human. We've got one Kakita background, essentially, but that's because he adopted out young, or promoted out young. And then...
Yeah, or at least identifies more with them along those sides.
Right, and then...
because I'm just better.
And then you're a Doji, and I will be a Doji too, just for simplicity. So we'll just but I will... that just makes it simple. Same vassal, low level vassal status. So Doji is cool. That works.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Perfect. And we are all going to be, well, 3 of the 4 of us are going to be humans. And one of the kind of the things that they changed, right, is they went ahead and went with all humans can be either get your +1s to all of your attribute scores, which if you don't want to spend a huge amount of time reading way too boring documents, makes your character much better across the board. Or +1 to 2 attributes and a feat. I will tell you that feats are, we were just actually talking about them, right? The original set were optional and the kind of lackluster. The new set is actually really nice. And in particular, they spent a long time working on the feats here in this book to make them much more interesting and effective. So for our humans, kind of you have to make a kind of a mechanical decision there. And at this point, I should probably give you your attributes.
Yeah, we're going to use an array, or
well, we're going to use an array. We're going to use a heroic array. So here's how that works. You have a 17, a 15. Here, why don't I put it in the? I'll also put it into the list.
Okay, I was putting it in the chat for you, so
okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, a 17, a 15, a 14, a 13, an 11, and a 9. Okay. Which you can allocate however it is you like. With that array, the +1 to all attributes will lift you up to where you have.
Well, there's 5 odd numbers, and so that brings every odd number up to an even, which is usually going to give you a bonus.
Yep, it gives you an additional +1 on just about everything. So,
yeah, it brings the 9, which would normally be a -1, I believe, to a 10, which is going to get you a 0.
Right.
So at least you have no minuses. Yeah. So that +1 to everything's pretty nice.
Yeah. It's not that I wanted to use this array just so that you don't have to feel trapped into the I have to have a feat thing. Okay. Now, so while we think a little bit about that, let's talk about animal yokai. Is that what you wanted to do?
Keep forgetting to unmute myself. Yes. Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
I do that so often. Okay. So if you wanted to play an animal yokai, they have otter, fox, bat. They have otter, fox, and bat. But you could imagine others easily enough. I mean,
I'll probably go with fox, just because I sort of described it as sort of like a woodland thing next to a road, so that just seems fox-like to me.
Yeah.
There's a long history of fox spirits as being like, and then I decided to involve myself in this situation.
Absolutely. Okay. So they are a little bit different. They have the +2, +1. Excuse me. And you can allocate that however it is you like. We are going to go ahead, and our characters are going to be 7th level. That gives you some room to have grown up into your abilities, right? It gives you a little bit of room to multi-class. I will tell you that the craziness of I'm going to play a character who is like barbarian 2, monk 7, blah 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 blah. These classes are really well structured, okay, and there's a lot you get by just going up in your class. The other thing is leveling. Well, leveling's not that big a deal, and we're just going to do like a quick game together. But leveling in D&D is very different than allocating points in experience point system, right? Levels are a big deal. So I always hesitate to recommend people multi-class because you get yourself into some really weird binds with the math of the game. So if you're not careful. So
for those of us less experienced with 5th edition multi-classing, how so?
Well, the game assumes a relatively smooth progression basically every 5 levels, right? Where your ability to hit or your ability to hit particular target numbers goes up at in a relatively even pace. However, attribute bonuses, attribute advancement is tied to character class or to class levels, not character levels, right? It specifically is tied to every 4 class levels. So if I multi-class at 3,
gotcha. So if I only multi-class to level 3 and many classes, if I'm 7th level, but I only have 3 levels of one class, 3 levels of another, and 1 level of a third class, I haven't gotten any of my attribute bonuses yet, while my other friends have gotten at least 1.
At least 1, and they're staring down abilities that gave them the effect of 2.
Got it.
Because that's what happens with a lot of the level 5, level 6 abilities is they kick in. So you get a lot of that back and forth, and unless you're really careful, you accidentally kind of put yourself in a hole, and you're now effectively playing a 3rd level character with 3rd level bonuses, and everybody else is fighting at 7th or 10th level. And then you wonder why you can't hit, and when you hit, you do no damage. Well, you kind of set yourself up for it.
All right. But yeah, the thing is, so long as you go into it understanding that and whatnot, and so long as your character still makes sense, hopefully the multi-classing isn't going to be too detrimental. But yeah, I'm a person who usually likes to stick to their one class.
Yeah. And like I say, it's up to you guys how you want to talk our way through this part of it, right? Because we're all kind of gamers. We have a Bushi, we have a duelist. It sounds like we had either a ritualist or a pilgrim.
I think I'm going to go pilgrim.
Okay. Go take a look at pilgrim.
Just because Path of Harmony, the thing is, it's like you find enlightenment in nature and the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And I'm like, that's kind of the thing I described a little.
Yeah, no, that works. Okay.
And Path of Harmony actually allows you to do some magic, so I still get some to cover some of that terrain.
Yeah, it's got that. It's got the actual spell function. Okay. Interesting. All right, I'll have to take a little more time and look at that. And then we had a Bushi.
I have a Bushi. I haven't picked which side of the bushiness to be yet.
Well, we can. Yeah, we can. I mean, we don't have to necessarily do that here. We have a couple of days to kind of think our way through some of that.
Well, I'm looking at someone who's really playing a very kind of base soldier, as opposed to a duelist or anything dramatic like that.
Yeah, either an arms master or a vanguard will give you that kind of a feel. Okay. And the duelist was sounding kind of a blade master.
Blade master, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to put, I don't want to put anything in anybody's mouth. But
it's pretty straightforward. We're good there.
Yeah. I was going to say, it was sounding an awful lot like a blade master to me. And I guess really the one I was sort of confused by, or not confused, but wasn't sure about, was were you thinking diplomat or were you thinking investigator?
Go investigator. Doji diplomat is almost too obvious, and I wanted to do something a little more interesting, and like we were kind of talking about earlier with the idea of how cool scholars are in Chinese romances. Yeah, I think it kind of fits more of what I would like to do.
Okay.
character. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Great. So as you kind of level up, so you go up to level 7, there's not a whole lot of decision making, past where you want to put your attributes. You will get one. If you go up to level 4, you will get a chance to select either one of the feats, or get an attribute bonus. I would suggest in this case, if given the array we're going with, that you go ahead and select a feat of some kind, just to give yourself some.
Got it. So where it says ability score improvement, that's
Yep.
ability score or feat.
Or a feat.
Okay.
The array is big enough to where you should be able to pick up something without it being crippling. So let's see here. And let's look here. I'm trying to remember on backgrounds.
So then looking at this, it doesn't look like we get feat choices, or maybe like a courtier just doesn't normally. So we either get one, we'll either have 1 or 2 feats depending on what we take for our starting human.
Well, yes. And I'm digging through. So I'm trying to remember on backgrounds. I know the backgrounds recommend a feat.
When you find a page or that you were supposed to be
There's all
looking
the
at,
feats.
I'm lost.
So at the beginning, at the start of each of the classes, there's a chart that'll show you your progression for levels.
I got that.
That's on page 67 for me for a courtier.
46.
Let's see, for Bushi. Okay. And so where it says 4th level ability score improvement, that could also be a feat instead.
All right. So we would take a feat, potentially take a feat there, and take the +1 on all abilities for human to start off with. So.
Possibly. Now the ability score improvement is what? It's +2, +1.
It is either. Excuse me. I stood up to do something. It is either +1/+1, so +1 to 2 attributes.
Okay.
Or +2
to 1.
Right. Or a feat.
Or a feat. Got it. Okay.
Or a feat. 124. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's a 124.
Now, I have a question for everyone else.
Of course.
Since you're all part of this family, who is this person that I'm pretending to be?
I mean, it could be anyone. You could be our auntie and uncle.
You could be
cousin,
that shrine keeper.
I
mean, I thought that was a good idea. You could have been
but yeah, someone who's
somebody who was sent off into to keep a shrine in Kuten. Not Kuten. Isawa Mori. There we go. Maybe somebody antisocial who went out there to keep that shrine and they died out there, and you are replacing them from that. I'm just brainstorming things.
Yeah, but when you kind of imagine
somebody who's rather antisocial and left the family couldn't put up with us. But
but just your initial thoughts on it, Eric. Was it a young man, an old man, a woman? Again, older, young, that you kind of came across, and when you were kind of imagining who you came across, what was it?
Probably someone more younger, and that's why they felt compelled to help their last wishes because they felt it was a little unjust that they died so young.
Right, because the dying so young is a tragedy versus well, you probably lived a fairly good life, old man. I'll look after you while you die. Versus, am I going to actually go and try to fulfill somebody else's dharma? Yeah.
I mean, if the family's that poor and on troubled times, maybe like a son or a prominent family member where they're like, guess what you get to do? Wander the roads as a pilgrim. Like, have fun.
So yeah, I'm not sure. How close do you want to try and be? Do you want to play as a cousin that we sort of know, or do you want to even play it as close as you are playing our brother, who we haven't seen for many years?
I was thinking someone who's fairly close, but has been gone long enough that the differences in personality won't immediately jump out to people.
Yeah, let's go with the cousin then. Let's go with a cousin that that we knew, we liked, but like we liked them for reasons that you are not acting like, kind of thing, right? Like it's weird that I always liked that he was always so quiet, and this guy won't shut up.
Yeah, it's really weird. The cousin just kind of like broke open from Michelle. That's kind of
yeah, exactly.
Especially being at a shrine.
He was always so shy, yeah, and introspective, and he used to read all the time.
Why does he want to gamble all the time now?
Yeah. So yeah, I think a cousin that we remember differently but fondly would be great.
Okay, I love it. Okay. The last, that's awesome. If you have any questions mechanically, we can certainly kind of delve into that right now, or we can move on to the last piece for your characters, which is really going to revolve around their motivations, right? And here we've moved on for Jeannie's not Jeannie's support. Look at page 240. Yeah, 240-ish. If we're ready to move on. Otherwise we can pause, and if there's more mechanical kinds of questions.
Okay.
I'm good here.
I'm good to go.
Okay.
I'm set.
All right. And I will be available via Discord if you have additional questions about the character. I'm online most of the time. So, okay. So when you remember we way early in this conversation, we started talking about backgrounds and motivations and all these kinds of strange things. In D&D 5th edition, your background actually then gives you a set of things, ideals, bonds, flaws. And the original idea, was that you would have these role-playing tags. And if you role-played your tag, you would get something called an inspiration. And an inspiration is a very simple thing, right? What it means is that you can say, I am inspired, I'm going to spend my inspiration, and I'm going to get advantage on whatever this dice roll is. And advantage is really kind of neat. It means that you roll 2d20 rather than 1, and you pick the higher of the two. So if, as commonly happens at my table, you roll a 2 and a 19, you can pick the 19. Right? In Adventures in Rokugan, they kind of pulled that out of the background and said, really the characters' motivations, their bonds, their ideals, their duties, those are more related to who they are as characters. And you're going to get an inspiration when you act on whatever it is, or when those two things come into conflict. So they kind of tried to open up this idea in L5R that we all have things that are important to us, but we are always also in conflict with ourselves. And the more you roleplay that, the more inspirations you get, the more often you get to roll with advantage mechanically. So based off the characters we've talked about, I'd like to talk a little bit about which of these they would have, and you can pick 2 from a giant list. I'm not even going to try and list it all, but they're lists of bonds, so connections with other people, desires, your personal goals, your duties, your obligations, your fears, misapprehensions, your ideals, and your regrets. And so there's a whole giant list of these, but we could also just discuss, because I think in our discussions of these characters, a couple of these have come out already.
Well, we've got for our yokai already, as stated. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you've got a conflict between the desire to help, replace and help the family in place of this person, and whatever your yokai-ish animal trickster nature might be. Seems like an obvious conflict.
Yeah, I am supposed to be tending to my like forest and that part. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna go on an adventure.
The forest will be all right. Listen, these humans died quick. I'll be back. I'm an immortal forest creature. Listen, I think in the long term.
But
yes, they are very much shirking their heavenly duties to go off on a little excursion.
Like what in one of the stories, occasionally Kitsune pops out his tail by accident or something like that. Yeah. Oopsie.
Well, right. So we have a duty. This duty to the sacred, with a desire for adventure, to see the world, to explore, to be mischievous a little bit, perhaps. Okay. What about our Kakita duelist? It sounded like we had at least one, or if not 2, already kind of picked out.
So what I'm thinking is an ideal, being more loyal, and just having that loyalty tested, not in the form of like maliciousness. It's not saying, hey, turn on your family. It's more or less, hey, come back to your family. Is kind of that ideal. So a little bit of a torn loyalty between the adopted Kakita family and this poor Doji family. So I think that's one of the things I want to go with, and I'm kind of struggling if I want to go with a regret or fear.
Ooh. Okay.
A little bit more of a regret that I completely left these people by themselves, but they didn't, but kind of justifying it by like, well, they didn't actually talk to me first, so, and I'm much more important than they are apparently. But kind of getting that, like, trying to justify a wrong sounds very much like a regretful thing.
Absolutely. And the ideal there really sounds like filial piety.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a character who feels a great deal of filial piety. At the same time, it's a very classical conflict. Who really is his family?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a very classical conflict to be having. So, love it. With a regret, because the decisions he's made already may have cut off whole parts of his life and whole parts of his family.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the things that's like, it's 2 ways. It's definitely 2 ways. They didn't reach out, but neither did he. And now it's like, again, trying to be like, no, I was in the right the entire time. They're wrong, but are they? And just having those doubts.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's awesome. All right.
I have an idea for my middle child here. I am thinking maybe having this person have kind of have almost the opposite
Uh-huh.
of the Kakita duelist, having this person at some point when they were a teenager or young person have really messed up in some fashion that embarrassed the family or made themselves look inadequate, stupid, otherwise. So basically have a conflict where they want to serve the family, but maybe the members of the family really think that they're either incapable or just they have a lot to make up for, or just bad expectations on them, and they've kind of internalized that. It's like, oh, I'm so stupid, whatever, down talking themselves, and feel, instead of being like, oh, now I'm going to be driven to be the best there is to do it, it's more like I can't do that because see, I suck. This is sad. I know this is sad. Oh my gosh. But that.
Okay.
That the expectations were overwhelming, and yeah, there's a regret maybe that.
So you have
they failed, and
so there's a regret there
that they can't match up to the expectations, so it's no good even trying, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Well, so there's a regret. There's a regret about a failure in your past, and you can imagine what that failure was. But there's also a desire
not thinking of somebody who's really
to prove yourself to the family.
Driven by that desire, but
does that sound right?
Because they don't think that they can. But maybe if the opportunity showed up, they would think that they could. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. And Robert, that leaves, I don't think we've.
Nope. That leaves me here. Yep. I'm kind of looking at 4 different areas. I could definitely do bonds, wanting to go with the family, although bond seems to be focused more on a singular person in a lot of ways here, it looks like.
Yeah.
Duty, of course, feeling that he has a duty to maintain the family, keep it together, and get it to prosper. Fear that the family's falling apart and he has to act because of that fear. Like, I love the first example fear, the misapprehension that only the strong can prosper, and thus you must become as strong as possible. Man, that is fantastic. That takes like so many shonen characters and just says, hey, what you're really feeling is fear, right? And just like, I gotta get strong, I gotta train to be the best. It's like, well, but why, kid? You're feeling real weird about things. So I like the idea that it could also be a fear. And then, of course, there's the ideal of filial piety, which I really like that in. Well, I dislike that they just dropped Bushido and Honor out of Air in many ways. I like that they added filial piety and faithful friendship and some other Confucius ideals to the code that they do use in this game. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go filial piety, and I don't know. What do you guys think? Fear or duty?
I always like having that kind of, I mean, not to say that it's a negative attribute, but fear is a good
motivator.
It's a good foil to ideals.
I think
yeah.
So I think fear would be good. Although duty does sound like a fantastic one for you as well. Just because that's something that's bringing you back.
The way this group is playing out, it seems to me like you'll be the stable center of the group, which is good. Having the duty then pushes that forward, keeps it rolling forward. And I was thinking I could take the fear in that if the third option in the sample fear is a misbelief that your weakness is a liability to your friends. That for my character like I failed, therefore I have that as my my fear. I believe that I'm just gonna screw up and it'll be a liability to the family.
The more I look at this, I will say this about it. Like I said, I might have been kind of skeptical at first, but I will say that from reading what they've put out here in Air, this is probably the best version of the D&D I have ever seen. It's so well written. I really liked it what they've put into Air. I think I still, and maybe it's just because it's D&D, but with my favorite overlay of Samurai Chambara stuff. But it's so well written. There's so many great bits in here on the backgrounds and the motivations. I'm really digging a lot of what they've written here, and because a lot of it's so thoughtful on things that are just like, hey, so let's talk about your motivations, but let's get real thoughtful into like how all this kind of can play out. I'm man, I like it.
They've done it. I occasionally wax effusive about the work they've did here. I mean, they've done some good stuff, and having the two allows you to create both the opportunity to role play one or the other, but also that internal conflict.
Yeah, let you do the ninja versus Giri thing that samurai fiction should always be trying to aspire to. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with filial piety for an ideal, and then a duty to maintain the family and see that it succeeds. Yeah.
Okay. And then Jeannie's going to go with a regret, that self-reproach over the failure, but also a fear that has that really a misbelief that your weaknesses is a liability. Does that sound right?
And Tyler, do not feel like you need to change filial piety. I think the way that both of our characters are going to exhibit and live within the ideals of filial piety are going to be so wildly different to be very fun and interesting when they clash on those things. Even though we think we're acting in the same ideals or the same accordance of those ideals, we are wildly different in how we approach it.
Oh, very much so. Because again, what I'm kind of going for is the duality of it. It's like I've got two families I'm loyal to, so that's even more so a conflict that'll come up and be like, "Oh yeah, we should do it for this family." I'm like, "Oh, do we?"
Well, kind of the one of the things that made me very happy when I read this book is actually on page 247, where they actually just give you a table, and you can say ideals and ideals. The tenets of the two ideals demand contradictory responses to a particular situation. So
there you go. Yeah.
You can apply that internally to a character or internally to a party. And I'm looking forward to it.
This is a great little table. Yeah. This is great. I love it.
So, I honestly think that this little table here, this whole section actually, is one of the things I'd like to just sort of pick up and move either into my other L5R games or into some of my other more
your standard D&D, yeah, or even Traveler, right? Yeah.
Or even Traveler.
I love this. Especially because it does have a mechanical benefit, which I do like. I'm half and half on, because sometimes I don't want to be like force good roleplay by rewarding you with mechanics. But at the same time, I also like having that reward for doing good roleplay.
Or you only roleplay once per session to get your bonus, and then the rest of the time you just don't talk or are only caring about the dice and the optimal way to play. Yeah. And it's in a fairly non-consequential way. It doesn't ever set your character up for trouble.
Yeah. I go back and forth, but inspiration is one of those very underused mechanics at a lot of tables.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to kind of put forth that there is doing this creates a dynamic at the table, right?
Yeah.
Where you can you can do this.
There's a currency to be earned by doing something good and characterful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. And I think we have a good set of motivations that will both bring you together and also push you apart just a little bit. Getting back to that idea that there should be this kind of push and pull dynamic in a Rokugani party as everyone tries to figure out their place and what that means for them today in this situation. All right. Well, that actually, unless do you have additional questions for me? I mean, I think we've got some ideas. We've got kind of a picture of this place and where you're headed to. And sounds like we've got some characters who are going to start to bounce off each other a little bit.
Yeah, I gotta go through the feats and figure out if I need to take if I want more than one of them or not. Or if I even need them with what I get out of my my character stuff.
I'm looking at one particular feat. It's one of the Crane Clan feats, clearly, because Crane Clan, and that's Poison Purpose. It's the one that because like you mentioned that we were doing a lot more, or at least the system does a lot more with advantage, and Poison Purpose is specifically made with when you succeed on a roll with advantage, and if both d20s are high enough to succeed, you get a bonus for it.
Yep.
And it's like, normally I would not look at that and be like, yeah, okay, I don't make that many rolls with advantage, so meh. But now that I'm seeing that there's a lot more push for advantage, that's a lot more useful and a lot more appealing to me.
Poison Purpose is actually, when I read through a lot of these, I actually saw a lot of that kind of mechanic, right?
If I can interrupt for just 1 second.
Go ahead.
It's Poison Purpose. I, as a Scorpion, heard Poisoned Purpose, and I was like, "That's a Crane one? Wow, how progressive!" Sorry.
Well, no. Well, and okay. So another way to get advantage very easily is help. Helping one another. So you can just within that mechanic, you can see Crane aiding one another.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, there it is. So and you can see that actually with each of these feats. You can stop if you step back. You're like, oh, this is that part of that family, that clan. But no, that's a great feat.
Side note: I also adore the feat of Impromptu Duel Coach.
Yes, I was just reading that one. I'm like, what? I just here to be like, all right, I'm going to be your hype man, and I'm all about just setting you up to do well. Like, what is going on here?
It's like you get to participate in a duel that you're not actually in. It's so cool.
Yeah, and it's also a charisma bonus. I'm like, okay, well, that might be one of them I take. Jesus, that's so good for a Crane. A D6 danger die on all hostile duels gain D6. Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty cool feat. I kind of dig it. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff in here. I got to be honest. Other thoughts?
I guess the one I'll ask is,
Sure.
I know with a lot of DMs that I get to play with, they have differing opinions on this. When it comes to hit points, do you prefer us to roll or take the average as stated in the book?
My personal experience is my characters die every time I roll because I roll like 1 to 3 on a D12.
Same. That's why I wanted to ask. Because I've got some GMs that will be like roll every time because that adds more flexibility and differences to the characters. And I'm like, I understand that. I die very quickly, so I get to make more characters that way.
No, if you really want to roll, go ahead. But I generally just say take the average.
I will take the average. Thank you for allowing me to do so.
But
No, I have played way too many characters where I've rolled 1, 2, 2, 4. I'm like, I'm the barbarian, for crying out loud.
Sort of related. The first 5e game I got to play in, I was playing with a barbarian who constantly rolled 12s on his hit points, which was fantastic. But I was the cleric. I could never heal that character up to full.
I was going to say.
It was so annoying.
Do not worry, little cleric. My half hit points is still twice of yours.
Yes. I don't understand. Why are you all sitting down? Yes. So, yeah, take the average. Trying to think. Just in case it wasn't clear, we are not fishing through other books. We're just going to play Air. So
Air core D&D, right? Or is it like strictly Air? Like that is a good question to know.
Yeah, strictly Air.
Okay.
I was playing around with late one night, pulling some of the feats in from the core player's handbook, and wow, could you make some broken things?
Oh, can you? Okay. Yep. I was gonna be like, why would you want to take things other than what's in this book? For one, because these are all so much better than the ones I remember seeing in core D&D. But yeah, there's perhaps some things that can be game breaking that I don't see just yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
right off the bat, I can see a Monk Pilgrim dip that gives you Dex, Con, and Wisdom to your AC.
You know what?
While you can attack with your Con as a modifier to damage and attack with boosted base level of what your punch should do.
That is a good point.
That seems low-hanging broken fruit. So yeah.
Yeah, let's go with what we've got. And they did a lot of things to the character classes and gave you a lot of abilities like the focus, the whole thing with the pilgrim and its stances that alter the way the base math of the game works in a lot of ways. And that's great because they managed to do it in a relatively self-contained way, right? So it all kind of fits together. But when you start to bring in elements from outside of it, it can get wacky fast. So
which is odd. I remember like in back in 3rd edition they had a L5R 2nd edition had dual stats for D10 and D20. I remember some people trying to take were just like, well, it's all OGL, so I'm just going to take some of these L5R feats and take them into my normal game of D&D. And I was like, oh, that's gonna break things real quick.
Yeah.
Someone saying like, well, how many katanas can I carry on my person at a time? That's like I can quick draw one, drop it, quick draw another, drop it, quick draw a third. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. All right. But like I say, I have a clear plan. I see where your characters are.
Yep.
If we could post them, I guess here. Do we have a?
We can post them here. We can throw them into character.
Character ideas.
Character ideas, yeah. I had a pop up adding for some silly game on Discord. So yeah, we can throw them into character ideas. What do we want to say? Sometime before Sunday evening.
That would be great. And if you have, I could say I will be. You can direct message me, or I'm here on your Discord server, so I will see any questions you might ask.
Yeah.
And Ginny does know where I am, so
yeah, we'll try to add you if we need to make sure that you see something.
Yeah,
she knows where you live.
She does.
Yeah.